And we are live. It is Cribl TV. It's Ed Bailey from Cribl, Ryan Saunders from SpyCloud. We are so glad to be here. Ryan, how are you doing today?
Doing well, Ed. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be back and doing another one of these webinars with you.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. How's the weather in Columbus today?
It's actually better than it has been. We're on what I usually call like third or fourth winter, but I think it's going to be in the 70s today, which means I'm like sweating in my office. It's always very hot up here, so it's good. After this, I'm going outside. It's going to be nice. Did I lose Ed? Maybe. It might just be me sitting here. I have no idea if this is working.
All right, you're back. Yep, there we go. We were back.
Okay. Did you lose me or did I lose you? I don't know what happened.
I don't know. I think it's Elon messing with Twitter API.
All right, give me 1 second here. I'm going to drop off my VPN just in case that's...
All right, just 1 sec. We'll be in holding pattern. I will talk. And there you go. So, yep. Can you hear me now?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you go. It's a little bit of static, but I can hear you.
All right. Hopefully it improves here.
Very good. So we'll figure that out. Yeah. So it's been lots of change. See companies all over the world, companies everywhere looking for some changes into how they handle their observability and security data. It's a lot of fun, having a lot of great conversations. I was just in Nashville earlier this week. A little country music. I ran into a couple of country stars. I am not the most country music aware person, so I had no idea who they were. But it was a fun trip. But it's always great. Best part of the job is talking to people like you, Ryan. So let's go through and let's, as my boss says, he wants a little structure, a little planning. So we're going to talk about how SpyCloud has implemented a Cribl reference architecture. SpyCloud was one of Cribl's early customers, and so Ryan has a lot of experience. And so we're going to go through a few things about, we're going to introduce Ryan. We're also going to talk about what is a reference architecture. We're also going to then talk about how Cribl is implemented, how SpyCloud has implemented Cribl Stream. I think very important. This is something I really want to spend time on is lessons learned. How did I give Ryan bad advice a long time ago? And then how did Ryan recover from my bad advice? And then we'll go through some closing thoughts, but just really looking forward to it. So Ryan, Oprah again. Oprah's here. So Oprah says, everyone gets a reference architecture. I'm going to flog this slide on every live stream until everyone gets it. Got a nice QR code here. Use the QR code, use the link, utilize a reference architecture, help you get the best value from Cribl Stream as fast as possible. Limit the amount of effing around and finding out in order to just get you to the right place as soon as possible.
Yeah, that's a phrase that my team here at SpyCloud likes to use. We like to avoid doing that. So we like to definitely take advice from folks like you so we don't have to find out on our own.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's the thing when people, I think it's just underappreciated that yes, you can start and you can feel your way around till you get the right architecture. Let's try to get you there a little faster. I'm sure, Ryan, that you and your team have lots of free time and that you can just experiment, screw around, and all day, and you have nothing else to do.
We're usually sitting around trying to think about what to do. What can we do next? Just take a nap, take the afternoon off. Not much to do with it.
But instead of the reality, you're so busy. You're trying to make decisions about what you can do, and that's the reason why it's so important to preserve your time. So let's introduce Ryan. So Ryan, tell me about yourself and tell me what is SpyCloud.
Yeah, so I am Ryan Saunders. I'm the manager of security operations at SpyCloud. My team manages everything from detection engineering, identity and access management, cloud security engineering, anything that looks like security, and sometimes even if it has a cord plugged in, it'll fall onto our team. I've been at SpyCloud for a little over a year and a half now, I think, and we've been a Cribl customer since the beginning of my time here. And actually, I used Cribl at a previous company as well, so got on with Cribl very early, when the company was young and new, and so we've seen the product grow and mature a lot. SpyCloud. We've kind of moved into this place now where what we call our product suite cybercrime analytics. So we're able to recapture stolen assets, breached assets. Think your passwords, your session tokens, your cookies, those kind of things that are stolen from enterprises and companies and used against you to defeat authentication, to get into your networks, to just cause overall mayhem and crime. Criminals gonna criminal. So we recapture that and we make it available in a lot of different tools. So if you're interested in what we're able to offer you, be sure to check out SpyCloud.com.
So you're saying that SpyCloud is a low threat security environment?
Absolutely.
And quite the opposite. SpyCloud has a lot of people gunning for you. The kind of visibility that every hacker wants. And so what Ryan's running is a serious business with a significant amount of work. We really appreciate it.
And yeah, that's what drew me to this company in the beginning was the investment and willingness to provide resources for a security operations team. We have a large large security team for a company of our size, so it's really exciting what we're able to do.
That's awesome. Being at the cutting edge is pretty cool. So let's talk a little bit about your architecture. So SpyCloud, due to your nature, we cannot reveal the exact architecture, but so we have a generic model here. And so just going through this, walk me through what you can talk about how you're using Cribl Stream with your observability and security data.
Sure. Yeah. When I came on to SpyCloud, there was already a little bit of an observability platform in place. We're a Splunk customer. I'm a big Splunk fan, like many folks here, I'm sure, and many folks who have come to find Cribl as a new part of your logging environment. It's a big part of what we do. It's our detection analytics platform, and getting data into Splunk from various sources has never been easy. But at a company like SpyCloud, we are completely cloud first, cloud native. When it comes to our architecture and our product environment, our operations, all in the cloud. And the same is true of our business applications. And those are things we care about as well. From a security perspective and a observability perspective, we want to be able to have insights and visibility into what's going on with our business data. And so one of the biggest challenges that we have in this environment is how do we, we're a fairly small company and we're not generating tons of data, but we're generating data in tons of sources, if that makes sense. You got hosted email, hosted EDR, sales solutions, you name it. We need to pull data in from those tools. And on top of that, a sprawling cloud architecture, where our products run, and there's lots of different sources that we need to bring in. And so that's kind of different from my experience working in a traditional on-prem environment, where you might have lots of sources, but generally they're coming from the same area. You might be able to capture them with a single set of agents or something. That's not true anymore. We just have so many sources, and so that was one of the primary challenges that Cribl has helped us solve, and really why I was so interested in bringing it back on in the beginning. Limited time, we don't have time to go out and figure out how to integrate with. Let's use AWS as an example. How do I bring those sources in to Splunk natively? I can use a TA, but maybe it doesn't do everything I need. Cribl gives us the flexibility to pull in all the sources natively right into the tool, and so that's kind of the first problem that we solved.
Yeah, I think that staffing is not to be underestimated. Your engineering time is your most constrained resource. And so how do you get the most out of engineering time? And also your engineering time focused on business value, on analytics and better detections, instead of just keeping the business running. So, that's a powerful point.
And, it's important, at least from my perspective, it's important to keep in mind that I hire engineers, and engineers come to SpyCloud to work in security, to be good security people. They're not here to be as we call them, data wranglers or data butlers. They're not here. They don't necessarily know how to architect, large data pipelines in AWS. They just need to pull the data in that they need and go to work on it. And so that is one of the single biggest wins we've had from this product is being able to pull all that data in. But it gets more complicated from there. How do we process all this data with no delays? Security data, in order for our security detections to fire when we need them in real time, that data can't be delayed. It can't be held up in processing somewhere or backed up. And so that's, I think, where the reference architecture starts to play a very important role.
Exactly. It has to be scalable. It has to give you what you need to get your data where you need it as soon as possible.
Right. And, we all know, well, if you spend much time in a startup, a rapidly growing startup company, as a software or a SaaS solution, you may get little to no advance notice that new products are coming or that we are bringing on a huge new customer. And so there may not be time to scale the logging pipeline. That could take us weeks or months with planning and execution. We just don't have that flexibility and that luxury. So with Cribl's stream in place and with a properly designed architecture, you can scale up in some cases automatically in minutes. So it really provides a lot of flexibility for us.
That's a real good point. So you're using auto scaling. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So we run all of our Cribl infrastructure. We're a self-hosted customer, and we run it all in Kubernetes. So we're able to scale up underlying nodes in AWS automatically if we need to, and we can scale additional pods for worker pods. Sorry, my dog is really upset that the mailman's here.
It's all right. Don't worry about it.
What? All right.
Yeah, we can. Giant fluffy cat jumped right in the middle of the camera.
I did have a cat laying back here earlier. I thought maybe he would be on, but anyway, yeah. So we can scale up and back down. Just as important. We don't want to run a bunch of extra infrastructure, and so that's something we're kind of experimenting with a little bit more right now. Most of our logging volume is fairly predictable, except for a few times a week where we run large processing batch jobs, and we see a 4 or 5x increase in log throughput, and we don't know exactly when that's going to happen, so we have to be ready for it. We could pay for a bunch of extra infrastructure we don't need, but I'm sorry, go ahead.
Do you use a separate worker group for that, or you use auto scaling to take care of that?
No, we use all of our worker groups are capable of auto scaling.
Okay. That's a common pattern, especially for intermittent workloads like that. Use Kubernetes is a great example, or also or auto scaling, and especially we'll split out a separate worker group to handle that sort of use case.
It's really very powerful, very flexible, but running anything on Kubernetes comes with its own, it can be quite a foot gun. It comes with its own challenges, and so it's not something I would recommend unless you have the expertise in house to be able to manage a platform like that. But you can achieve the same kind of auto scaling with just plain EC2 instances and other, and do it on other platforms as well. So yeah, that would be my word of caution. If you're not, if you don't have the skill set in house within your own team or within your organization to manage a Kubernetes environment, that is a dangerous game you can get into. But overall, the benefits outweigh the negatives for me. So
nice. And thanks for bringing that. That's a concern I always have with Kubernetes. I think it's very, very important to make sure you have a skill set to match, because otherwise it can be a problem.
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time troubleshooting just obscure issues that had nothing to do with Cribl, the product, had to do with the underlying infrastructure. So just be prepared.
There you go. So tell me about, are you splitting out your worker groups by VPC or by region, or how are you splitting up your worker groups and organizing it in a big cloud native environment like SpyCloud?
Sure. So we run all of our security tooling completely isolated and separate in its own trust boundary or its own AWS account, away from all the other infrastructure in our environment. And that's on purpose. We want to keep that security data away. We want to be able to collect logs centrally. And we want to keep them from being tampered with in other environments, or if another account has a problem with provisioning, or maybe somebody accidentally Terraform destroys something, we don't want that to affect our logging. So we keep that separate, and it's quite locked down. And so we run all of our workers and our leader in the same account. And so the way that works at a high level is with AWS sources, we can it doesn't matter where the workers run. We're going to be pulling things in from S3 buckets and Kinesis streams, things like that, and we can do that from anywhere. And so we do that from within our own VPCs that the security team maintains.
So what kind of data sources? So are you using push data sources, pull data sources, or are you using the REST collector?
Yes, to all of the above. We have quite a collection of things. So we're doing a lot of I would say probably 70% of our data is pool. And what I mean by pool data is we're going out and bringing that data back into the environment. So it's not being sent to us. If you think of something like a Splunk Universal Forwarder, that's pushing data to Splunk, pushing it to Cribl. Whereas with Kinesis Stream, well, you can set up Kinesis to stream to you. We're pulling it off the queue.
Right.
Or data in an S3 bucket, we have to go out and initiate that data collection. And so the way we do that is we have we have two primary collection worker groups, and they're simply called push and pull. And that was something that we decided to do and implement early on. You and I talked about it, Ed. What is the best practice here for making sure that we're ready to scale? When we brought Cribl Stream in, we didn't know, and that was back when it was called Logstream. So
Right.
All of our infrastructure is still named Logstream. It's really fun. We didn't know what the scale was going to look like. We're going to double in 6 months. We ended up pretty much doing that, and so I'm glad we designed a flexible architecture. But the nature of how the collection of data works is very different if it's push or if it's pull. My push workers might need to be exposed to the internet and have ports open inbound so they can receive data from various tools. But I can minimize the exposed assets by putting those pull workers in a small group.
Right.
If I wanted to, I can isolate them even further and say, okay, data that needs to be pushed from an internal network goes to this worker group. Data pushed from the internet goes to this one. And so we can isolate things and keep them, keep that blast radius tight and well maintained.
Exactly. I think that's a good point. And so we've talked a lot on the architecture live streams about separating your worker groups based upon data volume workflow, but you're also doing it as risk mitigation as well. So you're going to have a separate worker group that's potentially on the internet with open ports as a way to just be able to fail small and manage your blast radius instead of having one large worker group. And I think that's why this is a good reference architecture in terms of splitting up your worker groups not only by load, also but by connection type, but then also your security needs as well. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the initial goal was data processing. How do we do this efficiently? Mm-hmm. It's actually been really surprising how much we've had to scale our resources when Kinesis streams scale up and grow. And so I'm glad we only have a certain amount of data work in that pool group, and I'm not worrying about data coming in from my push sources. If I have a spike in firewall traffic somewhere, that could cause a bottleneck within my infrastructure. It's easier just to split things out and spread that load than to have to fine tune kernel parameters on how much data I'm sending through. That's we've gotten into the weeds with that. And when you throw an orchestrator like Kubernetes on top, just your brain will just start to melt when you're trying to figure this stuff out. So at least for me, yeah, you can. It's just easier to spread things out horizontally like that with different worker groups.
Can you share one thing? I think is people get concerned about a bunch of worker groups because of the management overhead. And so has Cribl Stream been different from you in terms of being able to manage multiple worker groups and how easy it is?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's if you were thinking, I used to be a Splunk admin, and so if we wanted to set up different indexer clusters, that's just kind of a nightmare to maintain. The more you get, your effort is going to scale pretty linearly. With worker groups, I have one interface to go in and manage things. I can copy, settings. I can basically clone a worker group and have the same settings in a different one. I can add whatever pipelines I want. I can minimize the number of pipelines running and routes running on a certain worker groups, and I can do it all from one interface. Honestly, the biggest win for us with Stream is that we can upgrade everything from one single pane of glass. I don't have to go out and plan a 12-hour overnight weekend upgrade of my indexers. I just click upgrade on that worker group and it happens.
I think just want to pause and say, imagine if you're running other products and if you have, say, 100 servers of some other vendor, how long it takes you to upgrade. Where with Cribl, you can just hit a button.
Right. Yeah, and it's if you're a Cribl Edge customer, Cribl Edge is baked right into the product, so you should absolutely use it. We use it in our environment. that when you told me Cribl Edge was coming out, and there was a upgrade management feature. That was just that was it. I didn't need to know anything else. Like data sources work great. I don't have to spend weeks upgrading agents on across thousands of servers. That's amazing. And so that saves us so much.
What is Cribl Edge and why is it so different than other log collection agents?
Sure. Yeah. Cribl Edge is, I'm not a Cribl marketing person, so I'm not sure I'll get it quite right, but it's an edge logging agent. And by edge, we mean, in our case, at SpyCloud, it's out on servers, it's out on infrastructure that's doing compute tasks. And so a fleet of Linux servers can have a single logging agent on it. Not only is it doing collection, but it can do pretty much all the same routing and processing on the edge that Cribl Stream can do. If you want to process things on the edge agent, you can. We tend to not do a lot of processing there just so we don't potentially interrupt the more critical workloads on those hosts. We send that data back to Cribl Stream, which we can talk about here in a second for processing. And so we can essentially manage, we have probably a dozen different fleets is the term, instead of worker groups in Edge. And we can manage separate configurations for not only Windows, Linux, but different types of environments, production, test, and different products as well. So it's very flexible. And it's all managed within the same interface.
Oh, sure. So just to get the workflow clear, you have Edge deployed as a log collection agent on all your servers, and it's collecting your data and it's sending it to Stream, and then you're managing, you're transforming and thinning out your data to Stream, and then you're forwarding that up into your observability tools. Does that sound about right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes. We keep the processing on the Edge workers very lightweight, just because we haven't had a real need to do a lot of processing there. But one of the things I tell our DevOps team about all the time is, hey, you guys are running your own logging agents. Why don't we consolidate? And you can use this very lightweight agent, and you can still use all your tools. You want it in CloudWatch? Cool. I'll send it there for you and do exactly what you want with it. But once you start looking at the tool and what it can do, it just makes a lot of sense to have one agent that multiple teams can control. Everybody gets what they want. We send the data that we need for security to our tools. They send the data that they need for operations to their tools, and it's a win for everybody.
That's great. And so in terms of Edge compared to other log collection tools, so you already mentioned the ability to upgrade it. So what else makes it special?
It's very performant. We've not had any performance issues so far. There are some, I think, guarantees on we can configure the performance. We can do performance tuning however we want. We can manage the number of workers we want. Same for Stream. We can say how many worker processes can run. On a Stream worker, I want to use up basically all my CPU time for doing Cribl work. But on, say, a web server, I don't want to do that. The web server or the database server needs to do database server things, not log processing. So that's very configurable. And so I knew, going into Edge deployment that, it was one of the things you boasted was, hey, this thing is very performant. Worst case scenario, it's never going to use up CPU time on more than one core, and that's very much been the case. So
awesome. What about time saved? Is it easier to use, faster to use than other comparable options?
Yeah, it's super easy to set up. We have a little one-liner script, Ansible playbook that can be used out in the environment. That we have lots of different accounts, cloud accounts, the different teams are responsible for. And so they all have different orchestration and setup tools, or we can bake it into a base image. And when that image gets spun up, it just connects to the Stream leader automatically and gets all its configuration. So the teams don't have to worry about anything. They get one line, one URI to connect to, and that's it.
That's awesome. And I think that's that key thing is it's hopefully making letting your team less work on admin work, more time on some business value. So that's awesome.
Just kind of the last plug for Edge here is, from a data admin's perspective, onboarding data is painful, especially when you don't have access to the environment that the log collection is going to run in. You might be asking for log samples. You don't know what the structure of the data is going to be. With Edge, I can go out on that host where I need to collect data and look at it myself. So I can in real time explore and view and collect and grab samples of data on a host, whatever my agent has permissions to view. If it's, running as root, and then we can debate whether or not we should do that, then we can see everything on the host.
Right.
And we just last week, I was working with a ops engineer. I said, install this. He didn't know where where the logs that we cared about for this, off the shelf product would be stored. And I said, don't worry about it. Just install the agent and I'll figure it out. That's so refreshing and different than how things were in the past. I mean, it could take days or weeks of back and forth in Jira tickets with a developer to get the correct log samples or understand the volume and the structure.
Oh, I know that. Yeah, I know that well. So as we close it out, so let's talk about lessons learned. So when you first got started with Cribl to now, what are the 2 or 3 things that you'd pass on to the class that things that you learned over time?
Yeah, I think in my original, at my previous employer, my original first log stream deployment, I'm just going to keep calling it log stream. We had one giant big worker group, and that was a much larger environment than I'm dealing with now. And that, that became a real pain over time. It was also running in Kubernetes, and we could auto scale workers up all day long, but there's only so much you can do by adding more workers to the mix. Sometimes you need to split things out into different worker groups, and it's just easier to split things out. When you start talking about highly secure, highly regulated environments, sometimes you need to be able to split things out easily. If you're multinational, maybe you can't commingle data or bring data back to the U.S. or let data leave the U.S.
Right.
So just knowing your requirements up front, what they could be. Maybe we'll be processing healthcare data someday. Right. Maybe we want to think about setting up our overall architecture so that we can split that data out separately later. So yeah, from the beginning, you should just assume your business needs are going to change. So be flexible in your architecture, and knowing ahead of time that you're going to have multiple worker groups is the right way to go there. So avoid my pain of one single worker group. Let's see. One of the unique things that we did is at SpyCloud is, so we take the data from the push from the pull worker group. All those workers do is collect data or receive data, and then we send it up to a third, what we call a processing worker group. And that's actually something we're moving away from now. It's proven to be more complicated than it's worth. You and I kind of bounced around that idea in the beginning, like, should we have this central processing worker group? And it worked for a long time, but as our environment and our logging needs and processing needs became more complex, we just couldn't keep up. It was too difficult. Okay. One of the nice things about having it, when you have multiple worker groups, we had one processing group where we managed all of our pipelines and routes. So it was one central place to go and manage any kind of data source. But that's not the way to go, in my opinion. And it caused a lot of scaling issues. So keep a horizontal, a flat worker group structure, and let those worker groups do collection or receiving of data, processing, and then send that data directly out to your analytics tools.
I think that makes sense if you can do auto scaling. We run into issues, especially at large volume syslog, where splitting the worker groups up is sometimes the only way to handle it. But it very much depends on your needs. But I think the difference for you is the auto scaling, and that's something not everybody can do.
Right. And even if you can auto scale, you have to put limits on that auto scaling. Otherwise, in some cases you would scale up until AWS regions explode and not, still have issues. So, if you're going to auto scale, put limits on it. You don't want to wake up one night and realize that you have 1,000 Kubernetes nodes now running because something was
and then you get the bill
sideways. Yeah, then you get the bill, and I have to explain that, and it's not great.
Great. So any other lessons learned? Because I think those were fantastic lessons learned.
I think the biggest thing to keep in mind is just work with your sales team, work with your solutions folks. When you come on and become a customer, they're really talented. We've done a lot of weird edge cases, just weird things we wanted to do within Stream with our security data. And anytime we go to, whether it be professional services team or the Cribl community is just world class. I'm in Slack all the time, mostly searching because it's a huge knowledge base, and somebody's run into the problem. Or
Right.
a couple of times I've gone into Slack and searched for something and I found an answer that I put in there 2 years ago. So that's something to keep in mind from the beginning: is use others, use the resources you have. Folks like Ed are amazing. You can message them on Slack and they will help you out. So just know that there's plenty of help. If the reference architecture doesn't look like what you think your environment needs, you can even reach out to me on Slack, and I'd be happy to chat it over with you and talk about what worked for us and what didn't. But just from the beginning, know that there are a lot of resources, and be prepared to go out and use them if you need it.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And I think that's where reference architecture to get you that 75% of the way there. So then you can start making some decisions and help figure that out.
For sure.
It's very cool. Hey, well, you said everything I need to say. I don't have any closing remarks. I really appreciate you being here and just sharing your wisdom and knowledge with the class, and just the idea is we just want to help people just get to the right solution so you can get value and get value faster. I mean, that's the thing.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for having me. I could talk about Cribl all day. Like I said, folks can feel free to reach out to me on Slack or LinkedIn or.
Well, we're going to bring you back. We're going to bring you back again soon, and so I'm going to play that for you. So we're going to talk about it. Well, at least for a half an hour.
All right, sounds good.
Hey, have a great afternoon. Enjoy the weekend. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, so for everybody else, thank you for being here. We're going to keep talking about the reference architecture until someone tells me not to, because it's just we want to keep helping our users to get value from Cribl tools. So thank you very much. Have a great weekend, and just we'll see you next week. Take care.